You ready for the word? Let's turn to Genesis 13. Before we move on, let's review just a little bit. Genesis 13:2, we have seen that Abraham was doing very well financially. It says that he was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. And the Ruach HaKodesh has paused us on this one verse for several weeks now. And that's for good reason. That our lives might be changed forever just by the nuggets that are hidden here, the pearls. We have, over the last several weeks, seen that we have seen what Yahweh has to say about us being blessed financially. We've also seen what Yeshua had to say about us being blessed financially. And then we have seen several key principles that contributed to Abraham's wealth. Number one was he understood who his source was. Number two was he understood the power of living a life of integrity. Number three, he understood the value of meditation. Last week we saw he understood the necessity of owning assets. This morning, we're going to see that Abraham lived by another key principle, and that principle is this. He understood that he had to believe it in order to see it. The world says, I'll believe it when I see it. If Abraham had had that attitude, well, we'd have never known who Abraham was. If Yahweh had said to Abraham, I'm going to make you the father of many nations, and Abraham had responded, well, I'll believe it when I see it, he'd have never seen it. Yahweh said to him, I'm going to give you this land. Go walk around it. Everywhere the sole of your foot shall tread, I'll give it to you. If Abraham had said, well, I'll believe it when I see it, well, he'd have never seen it. Yahweh said to him, I am your shield and exceeding great reward. If Abraham had said, well, sure you are, I'll believe it when I see it, well, he'd have never seen it. You remember what Paul wrote about this subject? Let's go to Romans 8, and then we'll come back and look at Abraham's life. But we need to talk about how important it is that we not have an attitude of, I'll believe it when I see it, but instead we understand how important it is that we believe it in order to see it. Romans chapter 8. Romans 8:24. For we are saved by hope. But hope that is seen is not hope. For what a man sees, why does he yet hope for? But if we hope for that we see not, then do we with patience wait for it. Now these verses are talking about ultimately our salvation, but the principle applies across the board to every walk of our walk of faith. We are also saved from lack, want, debt, despair, sickness, and disease the same way we're ultimately saved, and that is by hope. We are saved by hope. Now, what is hope? The Greek word translated hope here is elpis, and elpis, E-L-P-I-S, means expectation. So, if you go back and look at verse 24, it's letting us know that whatever we get saved from it by expecting to get saved from it. And if we don't expect to get saved from it, we're not going to get saved from it. For we are saved by expectation. If there's no expectation, there is no delivery. Okay? If we never expect it, then it doesn't happen. So listen to verse 24 again. We're saved by hope, but hope that is seen is not hope. For what a man sees, why does he yet hope for it? So let me take that King James and put it into just some country boy American or Alabama lingo. Here's what it says. We are saved by expecting to be saved, even when we cannot see that we're going to be saved. If we could see that we were going to be saved, we wouldn't have to be in a state of expectation. We would be in a state of already possessing. So there'd be no need to expect it. Now look at verse 25 again. But if we hope for that we see not, then do we with patience wait for it. If we fully expect to receive something that we cannot see, verse 25 says, it will cause us to react in a certain way, and we need to make sure that we see that. If we fully expect or hope to receive something that we cannot yet see, it says we with patience will wait for it. So it's real important to understand those two words, patience and wait. Patience is the Greek word hupomene. Hupomene means to have hopeful endurance. That is, endurance filled with hope, which is an endurance and filled with expectation. Notice here, we not only have to be full of hope, we have to be full of hope while we are enduring. To endure means to last a long time. So it's easy to be full of hope when everything's going good. But it's not so easy to be full of hope when things are not going good. Those are the times you have to last a long time and endure. Our faith is not meant to be a flash pan kind of faith where it's hot 1 minute and not the next. Our hallelujah can't be there today and gone tomorrow in order for this to work. What we believe on the Sabbath, we have to also believe on Monday in order for this to work. I don't do this often. Actually, almost never, but I want you to repeat some things after me. Say this with me. If I'm going to receive all of the blessings that Yahweh wants me to have, and that includes financial, then I'm going to have to be fully and completely expecting to be blessed. And I'm going to have to endure whatever I have to endure until the blessing comes. And I'm going to have to endure it with hope. And I'm going to have to endure expecting that I'm going to win and not lose. That's what Romans 8, 24 and 25 are saying to us. So let's go back to verse 25. It says, with patience wait for it. The Greek word for wait doesn't mean to sit in a rocking chair, whistle, and drink sweet tea until it gets here. The Greek word there means to completely accept that you're going to possess it. Completely accept it's mine. Even though I can't see it, even though I can't even see how in the world I could possibly get it, I fully accept I possess that thing. Down on the inside, you get convinced that it's yours. Even though it's not in your possession, that doesn't matter. You know and you're convinced that it's going to be yours. You know that if you endure, if you stay the course, if you listen to Yahweh, if you walk in integrity, if you keep meditating on it, if you do not quit, you'll possess it. That's what Romans 8:25 is saying to us. So we should understand verse 25 this way. But if we fully expect to receive something, even though we cannot yet see it, then we're filled with hope and expectation that is long-lasting, and we're convinced in our hearts and minds every day that we will possess. Getting to where Abraham was, which Genesis 13:2 says he was very rich, getting to where he was is not easy, and it never happens accidentally. It required that Abraham do difficult things on purpose. The Bible says he was very rich. We need to understand when we read that it is telling us that in order to get to that place, he had to do some wise things and he had to do difficult things. It wasn't easy to live by the standard of integrity that he lived by, but it was wise. It wasn't easy for him to find time to meditate on things, but it was wise. It wasn't easy to accumulate and protect assets, but it was wise. And it wasn't easy to expect Yahweh to do all of the things that Yahweh promised him, because Yahweh was promising him some things that were astounding. So it wasn't easy to believe what Yahweh was saying to him. It was difficult at times, but it was wise to believe it. That may have been the most difficult thing he did. Expecting to receive what there was no way in the world to see how it could come to pass, yet Abraham expected it to come to pass. Let's again go see what the Apostle Paul had to say on that subject of Abraham believing. Go to Romans 4. Romans 4, look in verse 17. As it is written, I have made you a father of many nations, before whom he believed, even Yahweh, who quickens the dead, that is, makes alive the dead, and calls those things which be not as though they were. So it's important right here that we see how Yahweh works. If we're going to work with him, in cooperation with him, we have to know how he works. And he is described right here in this verse as the one who calls the things that be not as though they were. He calls the things that be not as though they were. They are not yet. There is no evidence that they could ever be. Yet Yahweh calls them as if they already are. So if we're going to receive things from Yahweh, then we're going to have to come to grips with how he does things. We cannot dismiss any promise from Yahweh just because he's promising something that doesn't even exist. And even though it looks like it would be impossible for it to exist, you can't dismiss the promise because that's who he is. He calls things that be not as though they were. Those who receive great things from Yahweh believe him even when he's talking about something as though it is that is not yet. And then we have to start talking the same way. What did Abram start calling himself? By instruction from Yahweh, but what did Abram start calling himself? Abraham. And what does Abraham mean? Father of many nations. So, he's calling himself the father of many nations, even though he's 90 years old and had no son. So what does that mean that Abraham's doing? He's calling things that be not as though they were. He changed the way he talked. Calling things that be not as though they were. What about some of the things that may or may not have come out of our mouth? I'm broke. There's no way I can afford that. I'm stuck. I'm old. It's too late to start believing now. Abraham would laugh at us for thinking we were too old, right? We call things that be as though they will always be, and then wonder why they always be. Yet we serve the one who calls things that be not as though they are. So we have to think different and talk different if we're going to become recipients of Yahweh's blessings. Read on there in Romans 4, look in verse 18. Who against hope believed in hope that he might become the father of many nations. According to that which was spoken, so shall your seed be. Now, I've always read that, and I thought it meant that Abraham didn't have any reason to hope, but he hoped anyway. Who against hope believed in hope. I've always read that and thought, well, he didn't have any reason to hope, but he somehow mustered some up. But after re-examining this verse, I no longer see it that way. Instead, I think this verse is telling us that when Yahweh said, so shall your seed be, Abraham latched onto that promise with every fiber of his being. The word translated against, who against hope, that word translated against can mean against. And it is translated that way in a lot of places. But that's not its primary meaning or its only meaning. The Greek word translated against is para, P-A-R-A. We still use it as a prefix in a lot of English words. Paralegal, paramedical, paraphrase. We use that prefix a lot. Para means to come alongside of or to be near to. Use that definition and go back and look at verse 18. Who, standing alongside of hope, believed in hope. Or who near hope believed in hope. That is, here's the way I picture that verse, is Abraham had hope in front of his faith and he had hope behind his faith. He was surrounded by hope. That is expectation, and his faith is right in the middle of that. Perhaps we could say it this way. Abraham was expecting Yahweh to say something exactly like what Yahweh said it. Get that? Abraham was expecting Yahweh to say it. He was expecting to hear a promise from Yahweh. When he heard it, he believed it, and then he expected it to come to pass. Let me say this again. He hoped against, it says, hope. That means he was expecting to hear a promise from Yahweh. So when he heard it, he believed what he heard. And after believing it, he started expecting what he heard to come to pass. There's a key for us here in this verse. And that key, I think, is perhaps we aren't hearing what we need to hear because we aren't expecting to hear it. Abraham didn't just hear the promises of God, the promises of Yahweh in a vacuum. Abraham lived in a state of expectancy, expecting Yahweh to make promises to him. Expecting Yahweh to say things. He expected it. That's hope. He expected it. So when he heard it, it didn't shock him. He just believed what he heard. Abraham didn't have a son. But he wasn't walking around moping that he didn't have a son. He was expecting to hear a promise from Yahweh that he's going to have a son. It all goes back to that first key principle of his wealth that we talked about, and that is he understood who his source was. He served the possessor of heaven and earth. He expected great things from Yahweh because he knew Yahweh was great. His focus was on Yahweh, not his circumstances. As the next verse says, verse 19, being not weak in faith, he considered not his own body now dead. He's considering Yahweh, not his body, now dead, when he was about 100 years old. Neither yet the deadness of Sarah's womb. He staggered not at the promise of Yahweh through unbelief, but was strong in faith, giving glory to Yahweh. The word weak there, in my opinion, is a poor translation of the Greek there. I think a better translation would be feeble. The word actually means to be sickly, feeble, or diseased, or impotent. So what it says was Abraham's faith was not impotent. It was not without power. Abraham's faith was not sick and diseased. The strength of our faith, we see here, is dependent upon where we put our focus. If Abraham had considered his own body now 100 years old, or if he had considered the deadness of Sarah's womb, it would have made his faith impotent, feeble, sickly, and diseased. But he didn't do that. He heard the promise and started, it says, he heard the promise and started giving glory to Yahweh. Giving glory to Yahweh caused his faith to strengthen. Look at it. It says, he was strong in faith, giving glory to Yahweh. So when he began to give glory to Yahweh for the promise he heard, it strengthened his faith. If you begin to look at yourself and question how in the world could this happen, your faith becomes sickly, diseased, and feeble, impotent, powerless. But when he began to focus on the one who had promised him this, it strengthened his faith. Now, I don't mean to go into so many word definitions this morning, but the word translated stagger is also worthy of our attention. The primary definition of the word translated stagger is not stagger. The primary meaning is this: to withdraw from, to separate thoroughly, or to oppose. Look it up. It means to withdraw from, to separate thoroughly, or to oppose. That is what unbelief is. Too many times people think that unbelief is just a neutral position. Unbelief is not a neutral position. If Yahweh promises us something and we don't believe it, apistos, there is no faith there to believe it, we are withdrawing from Him. If Yahweh promises something and we do not believe that that promise could come to pass in our life, we are separating ourselves thoroughly from Him. Even the word means to oppose. We are opposing Him. We are standing in opposition of Him and what He said. Yahweh says, if you hearken to me, then I will bless you. If we don't hope against hope and give Him glory, expecting that to be so, we're opposing Him. That's what that word means. Staggering, that's one thing, but staggering, you would stagger if you stand in a place of opposition to Yahweh. So we have to train ourselves to hear His promises, stand beside hope, believe in hope, be strong in faith, give Him glory, and refuse to oppose what Yahweh is promising us. Verse 21, and being fully persuaded that what He had promised He was able also to perform, therefore it was imputed to Him for righteousness. Therein lies the issue, doesn't it? I think we all have to admit that there are times that we're not fully persuaded. We haven't learned, like Abraham, to meditate on who it is we serve, spend time with Him in quietness, so that when He says something or we read something that He said, that we're fully persuaded He's able. No matter how outlandish what Yahweh promised was, Abraham was fully persuaded He'll do it. Not just that he can do it, but that he will do it. It takes discipline to train ourselves to think this way. It sounds simple, and it is, but it's not easy. Abraham had trained himself to believe things so that he could see them. That takes effort, time, persistence, and determination. Your body, your job, your family, your present financial situation, all of those things can pester our thinking. Whispering and sometimes telling us you'll never be blessed financially beyond where you are. The news and others telling us it's only going to get worse. You have to endure all of that and be fully persuaded anyway. And that's not easy to do. It's easy today to say, I'm going to be fully convinced that Yahweh wants to bless me financially and I'm going to expect it. But beyond today, there are dozens of days and a plethora of circumstances that will attack us mentally, seeking to get us to no longer be convinced that it would come to pass. Today we can say, I am fully persuaded. But what about 100 days from now? Or 1,000 days from now? When we walk through circumstances, will we still be fully convinced? On those days and in those circumstances, we're going to have to decide whether we want to be strong in faith or do we want to allow our faith to crumble into a diseased state that causes us to oppose Yahweh and what He said. Be strong in faith, giving glory to Yahweh. Being strong in faith happens the same way as being strong in anything else happens. How do we get strong in anything else?
Work at it.
We work at it. Doesn't matter what it is. We have to work at it. Being strong in faith works the same way. We have to work at it. It's not going to be easy to rise above where we're at. Now, we've said this before. I'm going to say it again. Lying preachers will tell you that it is. Lying preachers will tell you that all you have to do is sow seed into their ministry, and voila, you get blessed. All you have to do is believe that if you sow into them, blessings come. It's not that easy, and that's not how it works. In order to rise above where we are, our understanding of Yahweh as our source is going to have to improve and increase. Our understanding of the level of integrity that's necessary to navigate through the world is going to have to improve and increase. And our understanding of the importance of meditation and how to do it is going to have to improve and increase. And our understanding of how to accumulate valuable assets, not just paychecks and cash, is going to have to improve and increase. And our understanding of how to get into a state of expectancy and to endure difficult times is going to have to improve and going to have to increase. Abraham did all of those things. He did things that we have not yet done. That's why he possessed things that we don't yet possess. Let's look at a couple of examples. Genesis 12, verse 1. Now Yahweh had said unto Abram, Get you out of your country, from your kindred, from your father's house, unto a land that I'll show you. I'll make of you a great nation. I'll bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless you, and curse him that curses you, and in you shall all families of the earth be blessed. Notice that 3 times Yahweh said, I will. Is I will past, present, or future tense? Future. All 3 promises there are future tense. So, Abraham went looking for a land that he didn't have a clue about where it was. He had not inspected it beforehand and came back and told Sarah, hey, I found us a place to move to. He didn't even know where it was. He just knew Yahweh told him to leave where he was, and he would show him a land. It's when we hold on to what we have for fear that we might lose it that we cannot get what he wants us to have, because we never go in search of it. Yahweh said to Abram, I will show you. And he said, I will make you. That's future tense too. It means that Abraham wasn't yet any of the things that Yahweh was promising to make him. He wasn't a great nation. His name wasn't great, and he wasn't yet a blessing. But Yahweh is looking into the future and saying, do what I'm telling you to do, and I will make you that. That's future tense. Yahweh also said, I'll bless them that bless you, curse them that curse you, and in you all families of the earth shall be blessed. That's also future tense. Yahweh's calling things that be not as though they already are. And though Abraham could not see those things that were off in the future somewhere, he had been expecting to hear from Yahweh. So when he did hear from Yahweh, he believed what Yahweh said and expected it to be so. How do we know he expected it to be so? Because of what verse 4 says. So Abraham departed as Yahweh had spoken unto him. So he did what Yahweh said. Faith without works is what? Dead. Faith, if not works it has, dead it is. That which we believe to be true always has a corresponding action. So what we do after we hear something proves whether we believed it or not. Abraham heard it. Did he believe it? The corresponding action says yes, he did. Let's look at one more example of Abraham believing so he could see. It's not I'll believe it when I see it. It is, I'll believe it, then I'll see it. Genesis 13, verse 14. And Yahweh said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, Lift up now your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which you see, to you will I give it, and to your seed forever. So this is not only future tense, it's also way in the future tense. I'm going to give it to you and to your seed forever. That's way future tense. Verse 16, I'll make your seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall your seed also be numbered. Again, I will, and it's way in the future. Now, watch Yahweh expect Abraham to have a corresponding action that proves he expects that to happen. Yahweh didn't just say that to Abram and then be okay for Abraham sitting there shaking his head saying, Yahweh said it to Abram, and he fully expects Abram to react in a certain way. And so he tells him exactly what to do. Verse 17, arise, walk through the land in the length of it and the breadth of it, for I will give it to you. Arise, walk through the land. The length of it, the width of it, for I will give it to you. I want you to walk through it like it belongs to you. There's not a one of us who, if we became more blessed financially tomorrow than we are today, there's not a one of us who wouldn't give glory to Yahweh and thank Him for it. We would know He is our source. He blessed us. But if that happened, that doesn't require hope or expectation. Why does a man yet hope for that which he already has? At that point, we are only believing what we see. We got blessed. We see we got blessed, so we turn and say, thank you, Yahweh. Romans 4 says that's not really hope. And that's not really faith. The greater blessings of Yahweh are connected to our learning how to expect what we cannot see and to give glory to Yahweh for it, even though we don't yet possess it. It's that act of giving glory to Him that our faith becomes stronger. We talked about it's got to get stronger, and to get stronger it has to be worked. Well, the way it gets worked is by thinking on what He promised us and then giving glory to Him as if we already had it. I'm not trying to let me back up. I'm not going to say the negative there. I'm going to say the positive. All I'm doing is sharing with you what the Scripture says. This is not some New Age thing. It's not some cultish thing. It's not some Eastern religion thing. This is Bible. The Bible tells us that what we have to do to strengthen our faith is to begin to see ourselves possessing what Yahweh promised us, and to start thanking Him for it and glorifying Him for it as if we already possessed it, when possessing it may actually be way in the future. Mama. Abraham, we're told in Hebrews, was looking for a city whose maker was Yahweh. And he died not having yet possessed it, but he died fully expecting to possess it, and he will possess it before eternity's over. He will see that city that he expected to see. Glorifying Yahweh for it as if we already had it strengthens our faith. And then what happens is we begin with patience to wait for it, for all that Yahweh promised us to come to pass. That is, we are full of hope, enduring all of life's struggles, expecting to take possession of all of Yahweh's promises. If we say, I believe it when I see it, we stay where we are. If we say, I believe, therefore I shall see in my life everything Yahweh's promised to those who serve Him, then we shall rise from where we are. So it's as simple as that. I'll believe it when I see it, or I'll believe it, therefore I shall see it. And I'm not letting go of that expectation. It is that mentality that causes us to rise up. There may be many, many more key principles in Abraham's life as I think on it though, I think there's only one more that we're going to deal with. We'll deal with that next Sabbath. It'll be interesting. It's a very powerful principle, but it's going to be interesting to teach it and to hear it. I hope you have a marvelous day. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. As his name is put upon you, so shall he himself bless you. Believe you're blessed. Don't oppose Yahweh. Believe you are blessed.